Happy Friday, my friends. Listen, I want to help you break through some things right now. You need to stop taking blame and responsibility for other people's problems, and this is called false responsibility. Oftentimes, we live in a framework where we believe that we are responsible for how other people feel, act, walk, and talk, and that if we can control other people enough by maybe taking blame for it or false responsibility, that's one way that we can try to control and even manipulate or lead a situation the way that we want the outcome to be. Now, the side effect of this is that we constantly feel blamed for that. And maybe you've lived your life where you were always blamed for everything that was going on. Maybe in your household growing up, you were always the one who got in trouble for things that other people did. And so you realized to be safe and secure and to live my life and to get other people to do what I want, I just need to take on blame for everything, because if I don't do it, no one else will. And you lived your life in this framework. And then oftentimes when we take on false responsibility and blame for other people's problems, we're looking for little ins to blame other people for our problems. We're looking for little moments where we can find other people to take responsibility for how we feel and what we did. Listen, you are not responsible for how somebody feels about what you've said or did or thinks. And this goes into all relationships. By the way, you're not responsible for your kids' problems as parents. You're not responsible for your spouse's problems. You're not responsible for your pastor's problems, your boss's problems, or your family's problems at all. How they act and react is not your responsibility to control. But oftentimes we've lived in a framework where we're afraid of, if I don't take responsibility for it, I can't accept what the outcome is going to be. And so if I don't do it, no one else will. And so we take on false responsibility for other people's emotional feelings, how they interact with us, how they interact with other people. And we're trying to control the situation when it was never our responsibility in the first place. And in fact, we act like, listen, they just can't handle the responsibility. They just can't handle it, so I'll take it on. And this is a place of pride and ego, because we feel special, important, and validated when we take on false responsibility for other people's problems, when we do things for other people. And again, we're looking to then blame other people for why we're taking on false responsibility for their problems. Listen, you are not responsible for anyone's problems at all. Nobody's. There's not a single instance in your entire life where you've ever been responsible for anybody's problems. Seriously, even with your kids, even with newborn babies. I'm serious about that. And that might blow some people's minds that I've said that, and I can explain that later if you want me to. Let me know if that's something that you're interested in. Taking on false responsibility for somebody's problems trains them that you will always be there to catch them when they fall. And that they never need to take ownership over anything in their life, because you'll always be there to take care of them. And we do this from the time that we have children all the way up to adults. And then we do that in all of our relationships. And we're waiting until somebody else finally takes responsibility for our problems. This is a circular loop of reasoning. We are looking to blame other people and have them take the fall for us. But it never comes. It never happens. And so we are constantly living in this framework of feeling unimportant, invalidated, constantly serving, being a scapegoat and a mule to other people. Instead of taking ownership over our feelings, our emotions, our choices, and no longer taking on the responsibility for how other people feel or act, giving up the need to control everything, and choosing to go after our goals, choosing to put one foot in front of the other and to say, you know what, I'm going to go hands off on this so that this other person can learn to take responsibility for their own problems. Maybe that's risky for you. Maybe you feel like, well, if I do that, they might get hurt or they might get damaged, or you're not responsible for that in their life. You have to give up the need to take responsibility for anybody's problems. You are not responsible for anyone but yourself. And that might tweak some people's heads. It even tweaks mine sometimes when I think about that. But it's the truth. Take care of yourself. Lead other people. You cannot control other people. You cannot even try to, and trying to will only ever lead to destruction. You can encourage, you can lead, you can show people the way, but it is their choice to do it. It's not your job to make anybody do what you think that they need to do. And that's what I mean by responsibility, my friends. Listen, as parents, obviously, we have a responsibility to lead children, to lead them, to point the way. But it is not our job to make sure that they do the right things. Ever. Ever. Give up the need to control things in your life. Give up the need to control what other people do, how they act, how they interact with you. You can only control yourself, your emotions, your choices, and stop taking on blame and false responsibility for anybody else. It's not helping you. It's not helping them. It's actually hurting other people to do that. So, today, give up that need. Maybe that's been a framework of your life. Maybe you've been taught your whole life that ultimately everything points down to you, and you believe that, well, if I take responsibility, I'm taking ownership and I'm helping people. You're not. You're not. It's only serving you to feel like you're good and getting a gold star, that you did what you think is good, and it's actually very selfish. It's selfish. It's actually very harmful to take responsibility for other people's problems. It's extremely selfish. Again, that might tweak your brain a little bit, saying, how is taking responsibility for someone else's problems selfish? Well, because you feel validated and important when you do it. It's not about them when you do it. Ultimately, we need to really dive deep and admit this to ourselves. The only reason that we take responsibility for somebody else is for our own safety, security, and feelings. It's completely self-driven. It's never to help anybody else. It really isn't. And so give up the codependent cycle. Give up the cycle of trying to control everything. You have one person in your life that you can control. You're responsible for how people understand you. You're responsible for how you control your emotions. You're not responsible for how anybody acts, walks, talks, or interacts, or the choices that they make. Once you give up that need to try to control that, there's a lot of freedom that comes in your life. Then we can start to choose to go after our goals with everything that we got, because that energy that we've been spending trying to take responsibility for other people, control everything around us, is now devoted to how can I go after what I have as my goal. And going after your goals is not controlling and taking responsibility for other people. Oh my gosh, give it up. When you learn this, breakthrough starts to happen in your life. Grow your life, everybody. We'll talk more about this. If you've got any questions, thoughts, feelings, I'm sure this maybe stirred up some things in you, maybe some thoughts. Let me know. Send a DM, leave a comment, whatever. I want to hear kind of where you're at listening to this. Stop taking on responsibility for other people's problems. Grow your life, everybody, and we'll talk soon.